This demographic is very interesting from a statistical standpoint because they're trickier to gauge what they're going to do. You know, they're a little bit of a wild card because you don't have the history. Now, reforms around that, and then what's going on as far as judges is the one thing that might get missed. But is super important for that demographic specifically because you're more likely to have some of those encounters. Just statistically, not saying anything, but we all know that when we're young, we think we're invincible. You know, it's more likely to see the younger person speeding down the highway than it is to see an old man. That's just kind of some facts that we have there. And
question. How do you believe we can encourage our young generation to vote and also help them understand that it's not the presidency only, but all elected seats? Annette.
I like to focus on down ballot, all elected seats. I like to focus on judges. There is a statistic out there that says that most people who are going to basically what it implies is that people are more likely to engage in behaviors that, you know, might have you encountering the police, you know, crimes, petty theft, those type of things in their younger years. And then as you get older, you're less likely to have those type of interactions. We get older, we mellow out, which means that young people are very likely to pay attention to what's going on when it comes to policing, reforms around that. And then what's going on as far as judges is the one thing that might get missed, but is super important for that demographic specifically because you're more likely to have some of those encounters. Just statistically, not saying anything, but we all know that when we're young, we think we're invincible. You know, it's more likely to see the younger person speeding down the highway than it is to see an old man. That's just kind of some facts that we have there. And so that is something that we can focus on, are the things that they're encountering on a regular basis. But I wouldn't be too discouraged just because based off of the activism that's happening within Gen Z here in the U.S., but also globally, there is clearly a galvanization of this population in a way that hasn't happened in recent history. And so not necessarily the excitement, the engagement that we're seeing here leads us to believe that there's going to be a bigger voter turnout. Now, this demographic is very interesting from a statistical standpoint because they're trickier to gauge what they're going to do. You know, they're a little bit of a wild card because you don't have the history. Now, those of us who have voted in 2, 3 elections, honestly, even just the one, then there's some statistical information that says you're very likely to vote this way based off of your previous voting history, right? For them, we don't have that. Some of them, this is going to be their first election being involved at all. So encouraging them it's really about focusing on issues that affect them. And it's it's something that people take for granted sometimes, but I don't think this administration can afford to take Gen Z for granted.
Yes. Yeah, that will be very important. Now, another question here. Do you think the Republicans were a bit too quick to pull the trigger on selecting the vice president? And I think they had to select one because they had their convention happening. I don't know that it's a requirement to select a VP candidate prior to the convention, but it looks like they picked a VP from a state that's already solidly Republican.
Ohio.
Yeah. J.D. Vance.
I'm going to say this again.
So do you think that might have been a bit too quick, with, of course, in hindsight, not knowing that this change was going to happen of Kamala Harris being the Democratic nominee for president?
I'm just going to say that the Republicans know what they're doing. When it comes to some of these decisions, they're very well organized. They've been considering this since Trump lost. Who would be the next person? J.D. Vance is not just anybody. He's a member of the Heritage Foundation. He is somebody who got into politics suspiciously recently and then now is the VP pick. That was not by accident, okay? This is a person who needed to have some sort of political background in order to be an eligible person for this position, and so he did just that. I wouldn't say that this was haphazardly done at all. This was done on purpose. I don't know their thinking or their purpose behind it, but I wouldn't put that. Now, did they prepare for him being the pick and then now dealing with Kamala Harris? And right now we don't have a presumed VP pick for that ticket, and that's something that we're going to be awaiting for the next couple of days. So am I going to be unplugging? No, because the next time I unplug is when they're going to they're going to pick a VP, and then, you know.
Yeah, and the VP, what white dude is going to be picked for
why
the VP?
the white dude statement?
But, yeah, no, because it's going to be a white dude.
Politics is a
yeah.
Omosh,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
let's see what Omosh thinks.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's be honest. This is America. You have a black woman who's running for president. There's no way.
Excuse me.
There's no way.
Boss. Excuse me.
There's no.
The right, and very many people say she's not black.
Okay, well.
I mean, she's the only person
that's
who can
the-
say
So I think
But it's true.
you can't pick a Hakeem Jeffries. You can't pick a Hakeem Jeffries, for example.
Okay.
Who would be a very qualified, like running mate.
Or Westmore.
You can't pick a Westmore or a Hakeem
But
Jeffries.
I think I'll echo what my governor said. Westmore very recently on an interview spoke to that, and he said that, for him that is definitely a big consideration that's out there, and we have to be realistic in the country that we're in, right? But the part that he said was he was told the same thing when he was running, and he made a choice, and it was a woman, someone who is an immigrant,
Yeah.
and someone who is a person of color, and so that was not the quote unquote ideal choice. He should have had.
That was a gutsy choice, actually.
It was a very bold choice,
Yeah.
but he picked the person that he thought he could run best with and could work best with. And Aruna Miller is a wonderful individual. I've had the opportunity to interact with her on multiple occasions, and so with just echoing that, I would say, that I agree with Westmore in that, you want to pick the person that you're going to work best with. However, there is the reality that we're not just talking about one state. We're talking about the entire country. And so galvanizing people around the entire country and having two people of color in the White House, that would be very, very challenging. And so it's already a challenging situation, and more than likely she's going to pick somebody who is going to be a white male, and maybe one day that will not yes, and hopefully that's not going to be the case for too many years to come, that we see a bit more diversity. But I happened to do a White House visit recently, and I went with my little people, and one of them stated, after, there's a like a welcome center, and you see all of the presidents down there, and the statement was, they're all boys. Why are they all boys? So I'm very much looking forward to the day that is different and going back.
Wow,